A nymph is a type of enemy in Fable and Fable the Lost Chapters. According to the book Creatures of Albion, Book 1, nymphs are ethereal yet dangerous creatures. There are 3 known types: the water nymph, the wood nymph, and the very powerful succubus nymph. All will be eager to send you to an early death if you stray across their path.
Nymphs are small, winged creatures capable of flight. They appear to be female and possess some degree of intelligence, and are even capable of human speech in a sharp and raspy voice. Their presence is unmistakable as they have an ethereal glow and a childlike giggle. In combat, they use their wings to fly around swiftly out of harm's way. They spend most of the time as small orbs of light and are invulnerable in this form. They can only be attacked when they materialize to summon monsters or taunt the hero, and in some cases they also send out spells. Since they spend most of their time flying out of reach and only expose themselves briefly, using melee weapons to attack them can be difficult, if not borderline impossible. A charged bow shot will bring them down quickly, however, but lightning and fireball spells are also very effective. Nymphs are very weak against fire, lightning, and sharpening augmentations, although, again, as I said, you probably won't be able to use anything with a sharpening augmentation on them. Their attacks and the types of monsters they summon will vary by type depending on when you encounter them and where you encounter them.
Yeah, so up first you've got the wood nymph. Wood nymphs are the weakest form of nymphs. They are green with skin that resembles tree bark and leave a trail of flames when flying. They attack by casting a fireball that causes a thorn bush to erupt out of the ground when it impacts, harming its victim. They can summon scorpions to aid them in combat and are commonly found in Greatwood. Generally speaking, if you can find them in Greatwood, they're pretty much base level enemies. So.
Yep. The next one is the water nymph, and they're the second weakest form of nymph. They have pale, luminous blue skin and leave a trail of bubbles behind when they fly. They attack by casting a spell that impacts with the ground and causes an icicle to erupt, which harms the hero. Additionally, they can summon 3 hobs to aid them at the same time. They're commonly found in Darkwood, where they can even appear in pairs. And I believe they're also in the Hob Cave. There's a mission involving one, so...
Yeah, we'll touch on that one a bit more later. So the next type is the succubus nymph, aptly named as well, as you can imagine. They're the most powerful form of nymph in Fable. They have a greyish purple skin and are surrounded by a red aura of flames. They attack at range by casting fireballs that detonate into bone shards when they impact the ground, and can summon 3 undead to aid them in combat. They can be found in Witchwood Lake and the underground tunnel.
Yep, and finally here we have the Succubus Queen. Succubus Queen is a type of nymph that can only be found in Fable the Lost Chapters. The description is given in the TLC exclusive book Creatures of the North, which reads, related to the nymphs of mainland Albion, though many have found them much more resilient. Their death is not brought about easily. They are able to conjure up what the local people call wraiths. They can only be found in the Northern Wastes. Specifically, they can be encountered in the Northern Wastes Foothill and Archon's Shrine, but only in very rare instances. Their skin is a deep purple with bright yellow markings, and they leave a black and purple aura in their wake. They are tougher and deal more damage than other nymphs, and can summon wraiths, which are formidable opponents all by themselves anyways.
So you then have the final type of nymph that you come across, although is not really different from another type, but that's the Hob Queen. So the Hob Queen is a variation of the water nymph that only appears during the side quest Hob Cave. Like the water nymph, the Hob Queen will summon 3 hobs as a means of attack. However, instead of producing an icicle, the Hob Queen's ground impact spell causes thorny vines to erupt from the ground. Hob Queen is also more durable than a normal water nymph, having health roughly equivalent to the higher level succubus nymph. This pretty much was because it was a boss fight in the Hob Cave quest when you're trying to get the lady's grandson back from Rose Cottage, who is trapped, and she's obviously going to turn him into a hob. But then if you remember, we did this. We talked about this in the Hob video. There's also a bandit, I think, that's in the cave that you can technically you can also let the nymph have instead if you want, or you can just kill the nymph and save everyone. It's up to you.
Yep. So in Fable 2 as well, it is stated that hobs are lost children whose souls were devoured by dark nymphs, although that type of nymph specifically doesn't ever make an appearance. But I think it's sort of safe to assume that all nymphs, I guess, have this kind of relationship to the hobs, because obviously we see this Hob Queen nymph during that quest where obviously she's kidnapped this child for probably to turn into a hob, I assume. So obviously it's never outright stated that that's what she's doing, but it sort of seems like it lines up with the information that we got in Fable 2. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably what's happening. To be honest, that's what I think it is. It's quite clear from that quest as well when you go back and look at it that's probably what's going on. And look, just for anyone, I mean, this is a lore video after all, so maybe there are some of you listening to this going, well, what's a nymph, what's a succubus? So we'll just go through a bit of the background. Won't go through it in massive detail, but a nymph is basically an ancient Greek folklore. It's a minor female nature deity. So they're not a goddess, but they're more of like a personification of nature, and are usually in places. So a bit like pagans, had the river gods and the forest gods. It's a little bit like that. So it's a nature spirit, really. So in this case, you might have like a river with the water nymphs, and they generally are similar to like the sirens of the sea, where they sort of entice men, I think, into the water, and basically then get pulled in, more or less, right? But I think they're not like evil in that same way. So they were sometimes beloved by many, and generally dwelt in specific areas related to the natural environment. And they were usually part of like a party of a god or goddess as well. So I don't think they were like fully evil though.
Yeah, I think they're always sort of depicted as more mischievous, aren't they? Sort of just in it for the fun, not necessarily like malevolent or anything like that. And so I guess I'll talk about succubus if you'd like.
Yeah, go for it.
Just because there is a type of nymph named after that. So generally a succubus is sort of a demon in female form, or a supernatural entity, and it's sort of traced back to medieval legend. And they often appear in dreams and take the form of an attractive woman in order to seduce men, usually through something sexual. So I guess in this case, the succubus nymph is just sort of a combination of these two mythological concepts. And yeah, I guess that's why it's been decided that this type of nymph is the strongest in Fable, rather than just the basic water element one or the tree element one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and this is just a concept. I mean, nymphs are female anyway, and so succubus is female too. I mean, if they were male, then they might be the incubus rather than a succubus, but not in this case. But it's obviously it's something that has been depicted in many different types of storylines and everything else over the years, like this kind of seductive thing that ends up killing you. It's kind of good. It's kind of cool. But yeah, that's what we've got on nymphs in Fable.
Yeah, I guess just to end off, in the trailer for what might be Fable 4, I don't think it's not necessarily 100% confirmed, but we do see a sort of pixie fairy floating around that gets eaten by a toad or a frog, and it could be a nymph of some sort. It could be a new type, it could be an old type. There's literally no way of telling. It could never show up in the game at all, because as we've said before in our previous video, it is just a CGI trailer. So anything from that trailer should really be taken with a pinch of salt. But I think, as far as I'm aware, it does seem to be a type of nymph. So that'll be interesting to find out, maybe, if we get to see what type it is in the future. But for now, that is all we've got. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll get back to some more Fable lore next time.